ZWLP Conroe and 106.1 KIR.
Well, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. This is Rick Schissler, your host of the Weekly Business Hour. And a big thank you for taking time to join us this morning. This is a transitional show for us. We're going to be entering into a series of conversations with some of the leading experts in the country on various small business topics that affect or can affect your business on a daily, if not weekly, monthly business. So I hope you'll tune in. We're going to have conversations. They're going to last 2-3 shows. So you've got to make a point that if you listen to one, you need to tune in the next time and pick up the completion or the follow-up to that show. And don't forget, the shows are always available to you on podcast. You can go to Facebook, the Weekly Business Hour channel. You can go to Facebook, the Weekly Business Hour page. We keep those podcasts out there. And most importantly, you can go to my website. I'm the founder of that's the number one, bestconsult.com. That's where you find common sense business advice for small businesses. And each of these shows is posted there as well. So I encourage you to visit our site, onebestconsult.com. They're our sponsors for the show, and we appreciate them doing that. Well, let's move on. We've got a special guest, as I mentioned to you. We're going to start these conversations. And our first guest will be a returning visitor, Ashley Easterwood, the founder of Springwood Marketing. And we're going to talk about everything digital marketing has to offer. It's a huge field of conversation. It's a relevant field of conversation. That's why I started my series of conversations, which I call soup to nuts. You know that expression? My dad was favored that, beans from the beginning to the end, soup to nuts, that we're going to talk about everything digital marketing. Her discussion will be a 3-part discussion. We'll start obviously today. Our first segment here today, we're going to talk a lot about SEO. I'm assuming everybody out there has seen those initials, SEO, search engine optimization. We've heard about it. We've seen those special offers on the internet, guaranteed first page representation for $199, and more bogus offers. So we've all been around the horn, so to speak, on SEO. We're also going to talk about SEM, search engine marketing, and some other topics such as using AdWords, and is that an advantage or a disadvantage? And I know that's a conversation in itself because people have either had real bad luck with it, so to speak, or they've had some success. So we'll follow up with that in the second half. I'm going to talk about in our Did You Know segment, we're going to talk about the idea of changing business world and what's going on and what you can do about it. And then I'm going to close out the show with my One Best Consult tip of the week, talking about low unemployment numbers. Are they hurting your business? Because we have a period, generally speaking, throughout this country of low unemployment numbers. And if you haven't experienced that before in business, it's a whole new feeling. On one hand, you feel great. And on the other hand, if you try to hire somebody, it's easy to get depressed. So sit back, grab your pad and pencil, and get ready to take notes as we talk about business right here on the Weekly Business Hour. And remember, if you've got a question or observation during the course of the show or after the show, please send me an email. My email address is that's the number one, bestconsult@gmail.com. Or if you feel like it, just call me. I love to get phone calls, 832-699-2132. And by the way, if you have a question about your own business, I'll be glad to take a phone call or an email from you and do my best to give you a general observation of what you need to do with that particular challenge. Well, the Weekly Business Hour is where Montgomery County and businesses throughout the world come to talk about the latest in business news, ideas to improve your business, and to hear from some of our own local business leaders on how they have found success right here in Montgomery County. Well, let's start that conversation. As I mentioned, we have Ashley Easterwood in the studio with us today. She's the founder, owner of Springwood Marketing. Ashley, good morning. Are you ready to talk about digital marketing?
I'm ready.
Well, there's lots of conversation. You and I've had a couple conversations about this, lots of ground to cover, but I think the conversation really does need to start off with SEO because one, I think it's the one thing that people have heard about, if nothing else, in digital marketing. And the second thing, I think a lot of business people, I know clients and people I talk to when I give a talk or speech, people, when it's about marketing, seem confused about SEO and what they can do about it in their business. So why don't you start off and talk about what SEO and what it really means to marketing your business.
Okay. SEO is obviously search engine optimization, and it is a form of digital marketing that is specific to your website and your website's ranking on Google. So SEO is an ongoing thing, and that's one of the main questions that I get from customers is, if I want SEO, if I want to move up on Google, then what do I need to do right now? How long does it last? First of all, your website needs to be optimized from the beginning. And that's also another misconception. People say, well, the person who built my website put SEO on it, so I don't need a SEO package. And I really have to explain to them that, yes, when you build a website, there's a lot of things that we do on every single page to get it set up for SEO, and you certainly want to do that. But it's also an ongoing project where every month we're adding things, we're adding content, pages, pictures, lots of different types of media to the site. And that helps you in the long run. Whereas SEM, which we'll get into in a minute, is more here and now. So you pay for it for a week, and then when you stop paying for it, it's gone. Your SEO helps your website move up in Google and then stay there.
Well, I liken as a business advisor, I liken SEO to something that never sleeps. It's going 24/7. And the second thing I try to convey to clients is you're in a fight for position.
Right.
Okay. So 24/7, there's a fight going on the internet, on Google and the other search engines for position on the page, so to speak, to be at the top, which is the number one position, very hard to get to under most subjects. But it's a constant battle that's taking place out there on the internet with the ones and the zeros and the digits, and it just goes on and on and on. So that means I'm winning and losing. But I feel like the third thing, I don't have any control over it. And that's not really true, is it?
No, not necessarily. Consistency is one thing that you have to keep in mind with SEO. And you're right, there is a constant battle. So when you see an ad that someone's going to get you in the number one spot for, this magic price, you have to remember, well, you may be number one today, but next week you may not be. So you just have to constantly be working on your website and researching, which a lot of people don't have time to research constantly and keep up with Google's algorithms.
Well, and the idea and the obvious advantage, but I want to mention this in case somebody doesn't get it, is that if I'm on the first page or the top 10, statistically, it's been shown over and over again, I'm a lot more likely to gain the attention, and somebody's going to click through to my website and seek to do business with me. That's a fair statement, isn't it?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, there could be 20 pages of people when I search for a certain word, but I'm not going to look through all 20 of those. And certainly if someone's on the very last page, I'm not as likely to use them. So it's very important to move your site up in Google's ranking.
And, one of the things I like to add, and again, this is something that's been researched over and over and over and studied, is on a business-to-business basis, 95+% of the transactions that take place, at one point or another in that transaction, the buyer has gone to the internet, has gone to the website. Right. Whether they get a flyer in the mail or they see you or at a networking event, they go to the website anyway. So 95% on a business-to-business basis, your website and I guess the SEO, it comes into play.
Right. Well, and then sometimes people will tell me, I don't need a website because I know people in the area, they know what I do, so I don't even need the website. And that's just not true anymore because, as you said, if I think of a business, I'm going to Google it on my phone. I always have this little computer in my pocket. So why would I not look at their services and prices and learn more about them? So it's important to keep your website up to date in the way that it looks, but also the SEO ranking, because you don't want it to be difficult for them to find you. You don't want someone to pull out their phone and say, well, I know he does AC repair, so I'm going to look for AC. And then the site's not there. So I may look at a competitor and decide to call that person instead.
Well, an example that came up to me and comes up again and again, and I am not that tech savvy, if that's kind of a broad word, but I'm learning to use my phone. I will use my computer, my laptop a lot, but I've actually, in traveling recently, we wanted to find a place to eat. And I just used my phone, and the businesses that came up on that first page, were the ones that basically got our business. I mean, it was because I could look at them. It was easy enough, and I clicked through and found them. So that's got to be a big challenge for businesses to make sure that they are available out there on SEO and on the internet.
Yes. And as you mentioned, looking for restaurants and searching, obviously your phone has its GPS on. And so it's naming the restaurants that are close to you or the businesses that are close to you. So people need to actually go into Google Maps. It's fairly simple to do and register your business. That way, when someone's using their GPS, your business will show up. And you do have to have a physical address to do that, but it's simple and it's something that everyone should do.
You know, and I think a lot of folks miss that. I mean, forget restaurants for a moment or consumer products, but even businesses.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I have clients in a variety of business, IT, this and that. And the fact is that folks a lot of times want to do business with businesses that are fairly close, not
Right.
in another city or, you know, depending on delivery times, whatever it might be. So again, that even comes into play with business to business.
Mm-hmm.
Well, location is important. Location on the internet's important. There's no doubt about it. What do you think are the keys in SEO? 3 or 4 major things that folks need to understand. So when they deal with an outside person such as yourself or trying to do something themselves, what are the keys?
Some of the keys to SEO are that people need to have a fair amount of content on their website. It needs to be a website that's easy to navigate, easy to find the information. I don't want to have to search through 3 pages on your website to figure out what specifically you do. Another big part of SEO that people don't realize is the loading speed actually affects your ranking. If it takes too long for your site to load, Google will move you down their list. And that's something that you can adjust simply by increasing your hosting package. Another thing that I highly recommend everyone do is have some sort of blog on their site. And if you're in a certain industry that isn't one that would typically have a blog, just call it a news or articles page. But that allows you to constantly put new information on your site easily. And it doesn't have to be every day. For a lot of clients, it's just every other week or even once a month to let them know that you're relevant and you care about your site and your product and you're proud of what you're doing.
So the idea is that by posting some content, I am improving my SEO,
Yes.
not just providing information to the client or potential customers.
Absolutely.
Well, let's switch gears real quick. We've just got a minute or 2 left in this segment, but let's switch gears to SEM. Let's start a conversation about SEM.
Okay. So SEM is search engine marketing. And the big difference between SEO and SEM is that search engine marketing has to do with the paid things that you are putting in your digital marketing package. So that could be Google AdWords, or it could be some of the boosted content that is very often used right now on Facebook. That's the primary one that people are using.
Well, what's your general advice to someone who's never done any of this paid or, used the SEM? How should they approach it to begin?
The first thing that they need to do is sit down and decide specifically what they want to market. It's very important to know just a few keywords or a few key products or services that you want to market and make a list of those words because that's what you're going to be paying for specifically on Google AdWords. You also want to think about the words that you don't want people searching for. And on Google AdWords, that's called a negative word. So if you only sell commercial insurance, you don't want to pay for every click of someone looking for residential. So you can actually set up your campaign to avoid those clicks, and that way you're not paying for it.
Well, that makes a lot of sense. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we're to the end of our first segment. Lots to talk about. Would you please stay with us? We're going to take a break now. When we come back, we're going to continue our discussion a little bit more on SEM and then get into talking about the various platforms and developing a strategy for your business. So please stay with us and we'll be right back with you.
Listen in Mondays at noon to hear Conroe news from local nonprofits, businesses, upcoming events, Conroe Park events, news stories, and information that matters to you with your host, Margie Taylor of Taylorized PR. For more information about being a guest, visit irlonestar.com/Conroe Culture.
Is there someone you know who is hooked on vintage aircraft? Follow the Commemorative Air Force and its fleet of World War II planes, including the mighty B-17 Flying Fortress Texas Raiders, which is based in Conroe, Texas. Texas Raiders tours locally and all around the United States, offering the public a chance to put their hands on aviation history. What could be a more perfect gift than a flight on a historic B-17? Taking to the sky on the iconic bomber is an experience that will never be forgotten. For the touring schedule, reservations, or more information, go to b17texasraiders.org or call 855-FLY-A-B-17.
Remember to download the Lone Star Community Radio app from your Google Play Apple Store. Bring Montgomery County's community radio with you anywhere with your smartphone or tablet. If you are in the Conroe area, tune in on FM 104.5, 106.1. If you are on your computer, bookmark irlonestar.com as your internet radio station. Lone Star Community Radio, broadcasting 24/7 from the heart of downtown Conroe, Texas.
Well, welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Again, this is Rick Schissler, your host. I'm the founder of OneBestConsult.com. They're our sponsors, which we appreciate. And I want you to remember, too, that your company, if you're listening and have a business, particularly in the Montgomery County area, you can sponsor the weekly business hour. If you'd like to get more information about it, it's simple, it's painless. Just send me an email at that's the number 1, bestconsult@gmail.com. Well, when we went to break, we were having a conversation with Ashley Easterwood, the founder, owner of Springwood Marketing, about all things digital. And Ashley, when we took the break, we were adding the SEM, search engine marketing, and you were talking about paid advertising, and you mentioned briefly before we did go to break about words, having the right words, keywords, I assume.
Right.
Let's just talk about that for a second, because I've always stumbled when it came to picking out keywords, keyword phrases that were applicable to my business, trying to select. How can somebody do a better job at selecting the right words that they're going to utilize in their SEM?
So it's very important to think about the specific words or the specific product, as I was mentioning, that you want to market. You also want to look at your competitors, especially if it's something that's being sold locally. See what your local competitors are using on their website as far as the words that are common on their individual pages. You can also search on Google the words that you're thinking about and just see how much competition there is. Because one thing that people don't understand a lot of times with Google AdWords is that you're paying for a word, and the price, I can't just tell you a price for the word. It's not the same depending on your industry or that specific word. And it may not be the same price next week that it was today. It's always changing because people are bidding on the word essentially. So it just depends on your competition. So it's very important that you put in the time up front to decide which words are most important, which words you think could really bring in the most business for your company. Another thing that I would recommend doing is purchasing the word for more than just a week or two. You can't expect results tomorrow. Now, you're going to have faster results a lot of times with search engine marketing than you will with search engine optimization. But you need to actually have the campaign for a month or two. Really, 6 months would be a good amount of time, but that's not in everyone's budget. Something that's important to know with Google AdWords is that you can turn your word on and off at certain times of the day. And so that brings me into the analytics side. Google's great about letting you see what's happening with your words and your website. They have an analytics panel that's pretty easy to understand and very detailed. So after you've paid for your word on Google AdWords for a couple weeks, you need to review your analytics and see when people are actually looking at the word. There's no point in paying for it at a time of day or a certain day when people aren't really even looking at it. You can also set your budget so you don't have to worry that I'm going to get a $300 bill for one day. You actually set the maximum budget for that day. So you are in complete control of your word. A recent question that I had about Google AdWords, or really a statement that a client thought they understood, is they said, I bought these words, or an agency bought these words for me, and I'm not using that agency anymore, but they won't give me my words. And I think it's important for people to really do some basic research to understand that you're not buying the word. It's not like buying a toaster at Target. You don't own the word. It's just your word that you're bidding on for that amount of time. And once you stop paying for that word, your search engine marketing plan is gone. And that's what sets SEO and SEM apart. SEO is organic. So you're moving your site up on Google's pages based on what you're doing over a long period of time, and your site stays there a lot longer. If you're paying for an AdWord and you're number 1 or 2, that's great. But the moment you stop, it's gone. So that's the biggest difference that I think people need to understand. You may get there faster by paying for a word, but you're also going to leave a lot faster when you stop.
And I think one of the things about AdWords, as you mentioned, once you can develop a skill, and there's a lot of information out there to help people understand AdWords.
Mm-hmm.
And I've seen some good information, good meaning that it's simple, it's easy to understand, and it's accurate.
Right.
But the idea that when I go into this campaign, not only having a total dollar budget, but the idea, because I think this scares people. Sometimes I see $5, $10 for a certain word or phrase, and it scares, and you can set a cap, as you mentioned, on a daily basis. But the idea is that, and I want to be sure people understand it, is as you check these analytics, don't pay for it and walk away. Ashley mentioned, check your analytics, because basically what you're doing is developing a profile of your prospective customer. You'll take a little bit of time to see when people are actively using it. The analytics will tell you that, and you're basically finding out when people are looking for your product or service. And that's invaluable to me down the road.
Right.
To know when the best time to be out there.
And also when you're trying to decide your campaign and researching your words, you also have to think about if you want your website to just show up in the search, or if you have a product where there's a picture that might catch someone's attention of what it actually looks like, then you would do a display ad. Both of them are through Google AdWords, but there's different types of ads that you can purchase. So I'll say that people can set up a Google AdWords campaign on their own, and it's good to look at the interface, but there's so many details that it's probably best to hire someone to at least help you get it set up, and then you can decide if you want to manage it yourself or have them manage it for you. There's also A/B campaign options as well. So if you have 2 good ideas, you can set up your campaign to run for both of those. And then again, you pull up your analytics a month or so in and decide which one worked best and why.
You make a great point, and I want to stop for a second and digress, if you will. There is a lot to digital marketing. There's a lot of information. And as you and I have talked about, what is happening on the internet changes just by the seconds, by the minute, by the day. It's 24/7. People need to have an open mind about seeking help, at least for parts, as you mentioned, someone to set up a campaign in AdWords, and then they can manage it themselves. But expertise, a consultant, to me, is a critical consideration for anybody, whether they want to totally third party the project or just parts of it. What's your feeling about that?
I think it's always important to seek out help, especially for a small business. You're an expert in whatever your business is. And a lot of people don't have time to keep up with what's going on with the digital marketing changes, and they're always changing. So one thing that we do at Springwood is we allow people to just choose how much they want us to be involved. And no, every agency doesn't do that, but it's something that we find important. If a client wants to just sit down for a couple hours a month and discuss what they're doing, then that's fine with us to do. But I think it's always important to talk to someone, do your research, and know what's going on. You can't just set up a campaign and run with it for a year, because things are changing too quickly to do that.
Yeah, the idea is within that year, there may be 2 or 3 major changes on how Google even evaluates people that are attempting to do these campaigns. So, and nobody can keep up with that unless it's a full-time job for them, like people like yourself. Well, let's shift gears a little bit. Let's talk about digital marketing strategy. We've got a few minutes left because time is a fleeting thing, but the idea of the marketing strategy is always a critical thing, and so many people get in a hurry. They kind of hurdle over that. Talk to us a little bit of why it's so important to have that digital marketing strategy.
Well, I think because consistency is such a big part of what we do, you need to have some sort of plan. Obviously, budget is a big part of what you're going to do as well. So you need to sit down and think about what your goals are, what you're hoping to achieve. So many people are just antsy, and they've thought about hiring someone to help with marketing, and then they make that decision and they just want everything to happen tomorrow. And it's very difficult for an agency to help you if we don't know what your specific goals are and what you're trying to get from it. Because right now you can post things on your site or on social media with text or images or video, and without knowing what you're trying to achieve and who your target audience is, we can't create the best plan for you. So it's worth taking that time, even if you're super busy, and that's typically an excuse. Take the time, because you'll get more for your money if you do the work up front to create the specific plan for what you want to achieve.
And I think it's important for folks to understand that, yes, you have your goals, what you're trying to accomplish, like drive more business, or I want 10 more customers, or I want to do this, or sell 50 more units, but develop a strategy on how you're going to get there.
Right.
And that, to me, is where an expert, an outside consultant, someone can help you connect the dots, if you will, between where you are and bringing those 50 more units or whatever, and using a digital strategy, because they should understand all the tools and what works, what doesn't work, how long it should take to work, and put a strategy together for people that makes sense and, as you mentioned, delivers the best value.
Right. And if you don't have a consultant, you may only know how to do a few things, and you put all your eggs into the basket of what you know how to do. If that plan isn't working, then there's nowhere for you to go if you don't have a consultant and you can't access these other things. So Google AdWords, as I mentioned, is a bit complicated. You would want to be able to reach out to someone instead of wasting money trying to figure out how to do that yourself. So just think about where you want to go and what you want to do, and find someone who can help you at least develop some sort of timeline and strategy.
Well, it all makes sense to me. And believe it or not, we're out of time today, Ashley. We got about halfway through what we hope to get through, but that's not an issue, because we can continue our conversation next Monday. And I want to encourage you, if you're listening to this part of the program, put us down for next Monday, 11 o'clock. We're going to be back, and Ashley's going to be with us, and we'll continue the conversation. We'll start off with talking about SEO, SEM, and content marketing, and why it's so important. There's still some major areas in this small part of digital marketing that we really need to talk to. So, Ashley, in the meantime, if folks want to reach out to you and have a direct conversation, what's the best way for them to do it?
They can email me at aeasterwood@springwoodmarketing.com, or give us a call at 832-663-9195.
Again, Ashley, thanks so much for taking time today to join us and to be our first guest on a conversation with an expert, soup to nuts, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to go to our bottom of the hour break. When we come back, I'm going to do a brief recap of our show, and we're going to talk about some other things that I think directly impact your business, and hopefully our information can help you improve today. So please stay with us. We'll be right back with you.
Hispanic Chamber Connections with Dr. Carlos Sanchez, president of the Woodlands Conroe Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, featuring event announcements, member highlights, and more. Tuesdays at 1 p.m., broadcasting from the heart of Conroe, Texas on irlonestar.com and Conroe's FM 104.5, 106.1.
Don't forget to download the Lone Star Community Radio app from your Google Play or Apple Store. Bring Montgomery County's community radio with you anywhere with your smartphone or tablet. If you are in the Conroe area, tune in on FM. That's Conroe's FM 104.5, 106.1. If you are on the computer, bookmark irlonestar.com as your internet radio station. A Lone Star Community Radio, broadcasting 24/7 from the heart of downtown Conroe, Texas.
Did you know there are more than 790 abused and neglected children currently in foster care in Montgomery County? Will you help make a difference? I'm Allie Stevens with Casa Child Advocates of Montgomery County. We train and support volunteers to be the voice of children in the foster care system. Kids are removed from their home because of abuse and neglect, and we need volunteers just like you to advocate for these children. To learn more about becoming an advocate, please visit CasaSpeaksForKids.com. That's CasaSpeaksForKids.com.
You are listening to the Weekly Business Hour, and this is Rick Schissler, your host and the founder of OneBestConsult.com. OneBestConsult.com is our show sponsor, and I thank them for doing that. It's kind of like shaking my own hand, I guess. But the idea is that I encourage people to go to OneBestConsult.com. It's a place where small businesses can find answers, make a connection. And if you have questions, we're there. We work with clients on a remote basis. We have different programs available to you to work with you and help you in your business, because our goal is to help you build better value in your business for you and your family. So please check us out at OneBestConsult.com. Well, let's do a brief recap of the show today. I hope that it was informational. I learned some things, which that's the key thing, I think, with digital marketing, as it is with many things in life. It's ever changing. And when you approach digital marketing and the internet and building your business, building your website, those kind of things, when I say building up the number of folks that look at it, because it's one of the best, if not the single best advertising venue available to us in business today. Whether you're on Main Street or you've got a factory somewhere off Main Street, or you're providing services to people, electrician, plumbing, any kind of service that you might provide to people, having a presence on the internet and being able to maximize that presence to drive people to your business, to satisfy clients, to answer questions for clients in your frequently asked questions section. It all helps build value in your business. And I think one of the important things that we learned today, I did learn as well, SEO, what it's all about, the basics of what it's all about. I find too many folks, too many people who have successful businesses, but they're confused by all this digital marketing, and they kind of back away, they shy away, and they really don't utilize some of the great tools to their advantage that are available right there. They've got a great business. They just need to tell people about it, utilizing the internet, digital marketing, website, all that goes into it. I think another thing that Ashley pointed out was search engine marketing. These are the campaigns that we hear about. I can't tell you the number of times, and I will raise my hand and I will take the pledge that I messed up on AdWords. I'm going back 10, 15 years ago when it all started. I was in business for myself, and we put campaigns together. Then the internet, yes, it had thousands of people on it, but it was a lot simpler then. Google's whole approach about placement of websites, the logarithms and things, all of it was a simpler time, like many things. But the idea is I messed up because I never could put my arms around AdWords and how to utilize them. It's a little bit challenging to those of us who don't do it day in and day out. And I think that one of the points that Ashley made to us that I hope that sunk in a little bit is that you need to seek some outside advice. Now, you can pick how much and what you want to spend, but seek an outside person, a consultant, an advisor, someone like Ashley, someone who can help you set this up at the very least. And then you or someone in your business can monitor it. Many times in a family business, I find a family member doing the Facebook posting, doing all these things, because particularly younger people have this skill and they enjoy it and they love it. And I think that's a very viable option. I've had several guests on this show where one of the spouses who didn't actively work in the business delivering the product or service did all that. It's very viable, but the consistency and the discipline are very important. So you need that commitment. And sometimes that is kind of takes the particular person in the family off the table for consideration because it has to be disciplined. It needs to happen day in and day out for you to be successful because, again, 24/7, there's a fight going on out there for position, for recognition, for people seeing what you're doing. But I encourage you, take some of the things that we talked about today, re-listen to the podcast. It'll be posted on Wednesday of this week. Listen to some of the points Ashley made because, again, this is meant to educate you. We're hoping this series will literally take you from soup to nuts, beginning to end, provide you with education. Then you make the choices, decisions on what works best for your business. Well, we're going to take a little break here now. And when we come back, I'm going to talk about a particular topic or two, just a quick bit, hopefully that will help you in your business. So please stay with us and we'll be right back after a short commercial break.
We have the safest food supply in the world. Strict laws and regulations restrict the usage of hormones, antibiotics, and pesticides within our food supply. Production agriculture practices and technologies such as the use of GMOs, which is not any more or less risky than conventional crop production, has allowed American farmers to produce more food on less acres in environmentally sound ways. Find out more online at pathtotheplate.tamu.edu. We are Texas A&M AgriLife Extension, helping Texans make lives better.
Hispanic Chamber Connections with Dr. Carlos Sanchez, president of the Woodlands Conroe Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, featuring event announcements, member highlights, and more. Tuesdays at 1 p.m., broadcasting from the heart of Conroe, Texas on irlonestar.com and Conroe's FM 104.5, 106.1.
Lone Star Community Radio is ready for the summer. If you or anyone you know is looking for a summer internship, Lone Star Community Radio is a great place to learn the radio and TV business. Contact the station at info@irlonestar.com or call the station's message line at 936-647-3776. Lone Star Community Radio offers a great opportunity to those interested in learning about the radio world.
Well, this is Rick Schissler again, your host for the Weekly Business Hour. And as promised, I'd like to talk about a subject that I mentioned in my introduction that is beginning to impact a number of people in business, small business, big business, all kinds of businesses, and that's low employment. Are they hurting your business? If you haven't recognized it, and again, I know some communities are not being impacted, but a vast majority are, but record low unemployment of 4% is beginning to drive up the wages, and it's leaving some companies short of workers, which is holding back their production. So not only are we seeing wage increases, which is you would expect, there are fewer people to fill more slots, but a key thing is it's holding back production. I mean, places like Houston, the greater Houston area where I reside and where the show is broadcast from, is having trouble hiring people to work in expansions that are taking place in oil and gas. We've reopened some steel mills here producing, say, tubular products, and we can't find enough qualified workers to take the jobs. Therefore, production is nowhere near where it should have been. It's interesting. People are even having trouble finding low-wage, entry-level folks, as well as software engineer. This, in my opinion, and reading the Wall Street Journal this weekend, they had a great article or two on it as well, is a threat to the growth that's taking place in our country right now. I mean, we've got an economy of 4% GDP. It is blowing and going. But if we don't have enough skilled, qualified workers, whatever level, then we're going to put a cap on things. We're basically in the 6th month of an expansion is measured by industrial output. In other words, manufacturing sector, their growth is up. Previous cycles last about 4 years. So we're kind of early in that cycle to be bumping up against the lack of workforce, the lack of workers. Unemployment in the manufacturing sector is at a 15-year low, which is a great thing. But the reality is that production in June, for an example, according to the Chicago Business Barometer, has fallen for the 4th month since December. So we have growth, but production is falling. Many companies are already boosting salaries to attract and keep workers. So we've got an interesting situation developing, one that might be a real challenge. And let me give you some numbers that I picked up in the Wall Street Journal article. The heavy truck market, the trucks we see running up and down the road, delivering products and goods all over the United States. Orders are at a 20-year high for new trucks throughout North America, but production has not been able to keep up with this demand. And that has caused disruptions already in supply chain, and it's creating the mess. They're already seeing it. Heavy trucks have surged last fall, annualized rate orders to 430,000 vehicles. But what's delivery? How many are they able to deliver? They have orders for 430,000, and they've only been able to deliver, or potentially will be able to deliver, 316,000. That's a gap of 100,000, 25% plus of what's been ordered and what can be delivered. You can see what I'm talking about. This is beginning to strangle this situation of low unemployment, and a lack of qualified workers is beginning to strangle our growth potential. So it's interesting. What is your company doing about it? And that's something you need to think about as you project. Your company growing, you're struggling to find workers. Raising wages, yes, that's an immediate reaction. I was talking to one of my clients the other day. They're paying $15 an hour here in the greater Houston area, where we tend to have a lower wage structure. They're paying $15 an hour for part-time clerical help to work in a retail store. And these are people that really don't have a lot of training. These are people in a high school, college, entry-level position. They're starting people at $15 an hour. That's amazing, particularly when we look at where the minimum wage is. So the fact is, your business needs to develop a strategy. They need to have a plan in place to counter this. One choice is automation, the ability to automate some part of your production, some part of your business. McDonald's has reacted to it because you walk up to a kiosk and order. It's a very efficient way of doing things because I've tried it out. I mean, I love to talk to the people at the counter, but I walk up here and it's got a lot more information. I can choose quickly. I know what I want, and then I'm on my way. Other things you can do, again, besides raising wages and automation, look at your process and procedures. Can you outsource some work? That's another area. Can you outsource part of what you do to another business to help you stay on track? Because the worst thing that can happen to you is when you have opportunities to let it slip through your fingers. Fourth thing you can do is look at your customer base. Every customer list has an A, B, C customer. A being your best customers, the one that order often, pay their bills on time. C are the ones that order irregularly. They take up a lot of time, always have issues, problems, and they pay poorly, for an example. Perhaps it's time to prune some of the people in the C category off. No one likes to fire customers, but it is a way to keep your production even and keep your business moving forward. The option beyond that, there are different things for different industries. But again, I think it's important that we have a plan and we deal with it and we implement it as soon as possible, because if you haven't been affected, you're going to be affected. It's a good thing, though, to have too much business, but you have to manage it. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to take our final break of the day. And when I come back, I'm going to offer you my Silver Fox tip of the week. And we're going to talk about Papa John's Pizza. It's been in the news a lot lately. The founder of the company and the company have split. And I want to talk about that a little bit because that can happen to any company. And it's important that you know when to split from your company. So stay with us. We'll be right back with you. Thanks.
What is homelessness? Have you seen parents struggle to find a job without having transportation or childcare? What about the children sleeping in cars with nothing to eat? Families shouldn't have to struggle to survive, and children should not be homeless. Family Promise of Montgomery County serves the needs of homeless families and their children. Learn about ways you can help and learn about partnership opportunities at www.familypromiseofmc.org or call our day center at 936-441-8778.
Our talk shows and music shows are looking for sponsors. Want to expand your brand awareness? Reach the hyper-local audience in Montgomery County? The Lone Star Community Radio sponsorships accomplish this. Want to see our stats and rates? Check out irlonestar.com/sponsor for more information. Or call in and leave us a message at 936-647-3776 with your question. Get seen on TV or YouTube and heard on our podcast, FM, and internet radio. Sponsor your local radio station with Lone Star Community Radio.
You're listening to the final segment of the Weekly Business Hour, and this is Rick Schissler, your host, and the founder and owner of OneBestConsult.com, our sponsor for today. Well, this is the part of the program I like to wind up with what I call the One Best Consult Tip of the Week. And recently, if you follow the business news, there's been quite a brouhaha going on at Papa John's Pizza. The founder of the company, the personality of the company, who's been behind the helm for a long time. He did leave for 2 or 3 years, retired, I guess, moved into other areas, but then he came back, still owns, I understand, 29-30% of the company. As you know, Papa John's Pizza is a large company, covers internationally. Its stock is worth millions, billions of dollars, but they have a problem at the top. And he came back to run the company a second time. I'm assuming it was agreed by the board of directors. I guess you assume that represent the other shareholders primarily because he's on the board himself. And he's had a hard time leaving. And he was actually terminated and escorted out of his office. I can't imagine something so demeaning than to be escorted out of your business and walk away from your baby. And of course, now we've apparently have some kind of internal fight going on. It'll be interesting to see how that plays out. But the fact is that one of the important things I think in business is to really know when it's time to leave. If you know me at all, my business philosophy includes at the beginning of a business to try to set the end of the business for you as the founder or founders of the business. In other words, set up your exit plan. That's composed of how much you want, when you want to leave, and to whom are you going to sell or transfer the business. And it's an exercise that I take all my clients through because if you don't know where you're going, ultimately, I think you are subject to making more than the normal mistakes along the way, investing time and money in things that really have no bearing on where the business is going. There's a lot of good reasons to do this. And I think in this case, it would have served the owner, the founder of the company, if you will, well, if he'd had a better business strategy in place for himself. I realize the company has been in some challenging times. The pizza business, very, very competitive, always changing. And you've got thousands of stores, thousands of employees. And so maybe it's hard to do. But I think as an individual, even at the head of a large company like this, we need to have a plan in place. And that's the first thing, plan for succession. First of all, I think you have to have an emergency plan. Many people don't have this. Even the CEOs of large companies, it's amazing sometimes that the board doesn't have an emergency plan somewhere in the file in case something happens to leadership, that they have a plan in place of someone to step in. You see this playing out right now with Fiat and Dodge in the news, where the CEO is ill for health reasons, needs to step aside. They need to do it now. And it's created a lot of uncertainty into the market, particularly the stock market and other places. And it's not as smooth. It may be just a PR problem. I don't know. But the communications seem like the company is kind of knee-jerking around looking for solutions. And that just doesn't need to happen. But a planned succession where the idea is, I'm going to move on. I'm going to do this. I'm going to sell the business. I'm going to transition. Again, I think applies to not only Papa John's Pizza, but to Dick's Pizza store at the corner. Have a plan. Another thing, and if you can guess who said this and in what movie, I'll be glad to give you an hour of free consulting. Just send this into my email. Again, It's onebestconsult@gmail.com. But there's a phrase that goes here, and it was, quote, "A man must know his limitations," end of quote. That's a phrase from a popular movie. A man must know his limitations. And my question to you is, do you know your limitations? Do you know what your limitations are for running the business? There very often people will start a business, and then as the business grows, it outgrows them, their abilities, or their desires, or both. Many times we have no interest in running a larger business. I had a business partner one time, and he wanted to keep the business smaller. We had a lot of success together, had a lot of fun together. We made a lot of money. I mean, all the things were there for a successful business. But we reached a point, and he says, "I really just don't want to grow anymore." And in our case, we worked out an amicable arrangement where he bought me out. But the idea is that people need to know their limitations. And it's not just limitations of managing the business, but it's also limitations on your desire, what you really want to do in your business, and knowing what they are. So if your business is successful and grows, then you have knowledge, understanding of yourself, and you can make that decision. Third thing is be open to change. Be open to change, perhaps constructive criticism or otherwise. Be flexible and know that there may be someone else out there that can do the job better. Someone is better qualified to run your business, and recognize that and accept that. And if you're really good at what you do, my encouragement is look for that person, particularly not later, but if you think you might be getting there, be open to that change. Don't let the ego get into play, which seems to be playing out a little bit in the Papa John's story. Egos on both sides are turning something that should have happened hopefully a lot smoother into a public farce as far as corporate management and so on and so forth. So again, I encourage you, don't get caught when it comes time to split from your business. Be prepared and make it happen. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank you again for joining us. I want to ask you to put a note on your calendar to join us again right here next Monday. Most importantly, Ashley Easterwood with Springwood Marketing will be back to continue our conversation on digital marketing. I hope you enjoyed it. Please let me know if you have some thoughts about it and things we can do to improve. And remember, you too can sponsor the Weekly Business Hour. You just need to contact me at onebestconsult@gmail.com. And thank you for joining us, and stay in touch with what's happening right here in Montgomery County, right here on Lone Star Community Radio. And until next week, stay engaged with what's most important to your business. Thanks.
I was raised a poor man's son, running up and down old 281, up and down that creek, my old shotgun, chasing them squirrels, gonna get me one.